Hello and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversations like mental health, self-care, self-love, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a community where we support one another to get to the next level in personal and business life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to ANDREA WILSON WOODS. And she is a writer who loves to tell stories and a patient advocate who founded the nonprofit Blue Faery. I know I'm said it wrong. The Adrienne Wilson Liver Cancer Association. Andrea is the CEO and co-founder of Cancer University, a for-profit social impact digital health company. Her best-selling and award-winning book, Best of Bald, A Life in 147 Days, is a medical memoir about raising and losing her sister to liver cancer. So, wow, let's get this let's get this conversation started.
Let's
I
do
am
it,
being a little
Francie.
too extra today. I'm sorry for that. So, welcome, Andrea. Tell us, what is life with Andrea?
Well, you did such a good job in my bio, but before you hit record, you mentioned you were going to say this to me, and I have to share that my partner told me the other day that life with me was exhausting, and
That's oh.
I felt like that was not a compliment. You know what I mean? I felt like, what do you mean exhausting? And of course, he kept trying to come up with a different word, but
Yeah.
could not. So I'm just going to take it to mean that I have a very full life. I have a lot going on, and I'm very passionate about what I do, and and that doesn't leave a lot of room for a lot of other things.
I understand that, and I have been told that too as
Have you
well.
really? Oh God.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. What is it? It's usually I'm too much.
Oh, I'm too, my partner doesn't say that because he
No,
likes
not
when I'm
yeah.
too much, but I've gotten that too, that you're just too much. And you know
I
what? You
just
don't dim your light for anyone
no.
because I did for a long time.
Me
Do
too.
not dim your light. Don't do it.
It's just we're passionate. We're
Yes.
passionate about life. We're passionate about our missions. I mean, passionate about the people that we meet. And yeah, it could be a little bit too much, but I love it. I love it. So yes, a little bit more about your story and how you started your mission.
Yeah, of course. So when I was 22, I was living in Los Angeles. I had graduated from college and I ended up getting custody of my then 8-year-old sister, Adrienne. And I raised Adrienne all through my 20s. I was her legal guardian, her only parent. And suddenly, very suddenly, she was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer about a month after her 15th birthday. And it was literally the day before. She was totally fine. The next day, I came home, found her in the living room, curled up in a fetal position, crying. And it was that night that an ER doctor told us the CAT scan results. And he said that she has tumors in her liver and her lungs. The worst words I've ever heard in my life. And that was day one of her very short 147-day cancer journey, hence the subtitle of my book. And it was devastating. She died a few months after my 29th birthday, to give your listeners some perspective. And so the following year, I was 30 years old. And my life before, just the things I was pursuing, an acting career, and none of that mattered anymore. So raising her changed my life. Losing her to cancer at such a young age changed my life as well. And that's when I founded Blue Faery. You did pronounce it right.
Okay.
The Adrienne Wilson Liver Cancer Association, and that is a national nonprofit dedicated to helping those diagnosed with liver cancer and their families. And then more recently, I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Cancer University, which is an online platform for all types of cancer for patients and caregivers.
Wow, that's a powerful story, and I'm sorry, for losing your sister.
Thank you.
Uh, but you definitely have honored her by sharing her story and her journey.
Thank you. I hope so.
So yeah, tell me more about, what the organization, you know, what you do in your book.
Yeah, of course. Blue Fairy's mission is to prevent, treat, and cure primary liver cancer, specifically hepatocellular carcinoma, which is, by the way, the most common type of liver cancer and the deadliest, through research, education, advocacy. Um, like I said, Cancer U is a platform to educate, empower, and engage patients and their families to become advocates for their healthcare. And my book is a medical memoir. It was published 3 years ago this month, and it's called Better Off Bald: A Life in 147 Days. And it's about that 7-year period in my life when I was raising my sister, but it is told through the lens of her cancer journey. So I wrote it like a journal because I kept a medical diary the entire time she was sick, but also
Wow.
she was a writer too. And she had an online journal that she had started long before she was diagnosed, and she kept writing in it throughout. So for example, day one is chapter one. And by day three, the chapters are introduced with her thoughts, her point of view.
Wow.
So you see the story through the lens of me as the caregiver and the parent, never giving up hope, trying absolutely everything. And then you see it through the lens of a patient, a very young woman, who is doing everything she can to live the life she has left. And so she was very, very determined to do everything she could possibly do. And I think at the top of the list was she met her favorite musician, Dave Navarro of Jane's Addiction. She met him not once, but twice. And that was all on her. It wasn't me. It was her driving that train saying, I'm going to get this stuff done. And she did. And in fact, we did almost everything she had on her bucket list. And I, at the time, could not acknowledge that's what she was doing, but that is what she was doing. She had this list of things she wanted to do, and there was only one thing that didn't happen.
Yeah, can you tell us more about your sister?
Yeah. We are 14 years apart. So technically we're half sisters. We have the same mother, different fathers. Adrienne's father died before she was born, so she never knew him. And when she was born, a few months later, I turned 14, and I helped raise her all through high school. It was me and my mom and my sister, and I really took care of her. I was there from the moment she was born. I was the first person to hold her after she was born. And so we were so close, even when she was young. But then I made the decision to go off to college and far away because I wanted to get away from our mother. Our mother was a prescription drug addict, had a lot of problems, but was pretty high functioning for a long time, until she wasn't. And that's how I ended up getting custody of my sister. And we had this rule in our house that came out of a confrontation where the rule was that I was her parent first, then I was her sister. And I told her, one day when you grow up, I hope to be your friend. And that happened early on, and it really set the tone for our relationship. And, she was getting to this place after going through a very severe depression in middle school and being suicidal. She was getting to this place where she was really coming into her own, and she was just embracing herself for who she was. And it was so beautiful to see. She was a straight A student. She had a 4.0 GPA. She took honors classes. And even with cancer, she went back to school. I'm using air quotes for your listeners, um, through homeschool. So I negotiated with the school district to get her teachers. I taught 2 of her courses because I was also a teacher. And she was determined to go back to school as much as she possibly could because it brought her a lot of joy. And she was really successful in academics, but she was also crazy, crazy talented, super creative. I mentioned she was a writer. She was an artist as well. She had had her artwork hung in 3 galleries in Los Angeles. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. She had dabbled in acting when she first moved to LA with me to be with me. We got approached all the time by agents and everything, and who loved her look. And so she dabbled in acting, didn't really like it. She loved craft services though. So for anyone who has not been on a TV or film set, there's a lot of food. that was her favorite part. Keep in mind, she was a very young child,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she loved it. So she dabbled on acting. She was a budding musician. She played a jazz bass, and she was phenomenal. And really the only thing she couldn't do, and nobody in my family could do, she could not sing. We cannot sing at all. But everything else, she was just very talented, and I was really excited to see where life was going to take her.
Wow. Yeah, she sure sounds amazing. Um, so yeah, so that then you lose her and you feel the passion to tell her story and all of that. How did you go about it?
Yeah, so a year after she died, I was deeply suicidal, deeply unhappy.
Mm.
I spent that first year really just pleasing everyone. I truly did. And I'm working on this right now for my next book. And I just got to the point where I just kind of lost it and I couldn't please people anymore. And I just wanted a way to channel my grief. And had there been another organization focused on the type of cancer that killed her, I probably just would have volunteered. But I did all the research. I contacted the largest liver disease organization in the country. I spoke to the head of the Los Angeles chapter, and they wanted nothing to do with liver cancer. Now, this was over 20 years ago, 20 years ago, sorry. And I finally just said, nobody's doing anything about this. And I knew the disease well enough at that point that I knew liver cancer was going to continue to increase. And it has. It's one of the very few cancers that's been on the rise for the last 20 years in the United States and worldwide. So I just really felt this call. Never did I ever say when I was a little girl, when I grow up, I want to start a charity. I mean, that never happened, but it really came out of me trying to fill this need. And I wanted to help people who were patients and caregivers because we were there, we had been there, and there wasn't a lot of support because there just wasn't a lot known at the time. And most people just went home and died. And so it gives me a lot of joy and pride that now I'm helping other patients and caregivers, and also patients are living much longer because there are so many new drugs on the market. So that's makes me hopeful.
Yeah. Wow, that's sorry, I'm like
It's okay.
it's oh yeah, so it's a very important message and I love your mission and your passion for it
Thank you.
and that through grieving you were helping others. So that's so selfless and like you're truly an amazing person.
Thank you. It's a little selfish though too, right? Because I get joy from helping others. And so I had someone once call me the selfish leader. It was kind of funny. So
I see
yeah,
that.
right. Because I enjoy helping people, and it yeah, it's been really good. It's been good to see progress.
And I love to the journal when it comes to the medical side
Yes, you
because
have to
not a
do
lot
it.
of people like even will think about it, but it's so important.
It's so important. You know, we live in an age now where we have electronic health records, but the problem is none of these patient portals talk to each other. And so I don't know about you, but in 3 or 4 different patient portals for different doctors or specialists. And I always tell patients and caregivers, at the end of the day, you have to stay organized. And not only do you have to keep track of these patient portals, but to make it easier for you and your family, especially if you have some sort of acute or chronic illness that needs to be taken care of. And so there's a lot of information coming at you. Print everything out. I know that's old school and it's old fashioned, but if you print everything out and you have it organized in a 3-ring binder, that binder can go with you as a patient wherever you go. And that way you can just flip it open instead of, I remember one time in a doctor's office, the doctor was supposed to get the results of a test that I'd had, and she didn't get it. Now, keep in mind, same health insurance, same, medical practice, same building, and one floor below where I had the test, she did not have access to it, but I had it in my patient portal. But here's the problem. I pulled it up on my phone, and it's really hard to read on a phone. And so I didn't even think ahead in that moment to print it out. And so I always say, get ready, and this binder, it will become your Bible. And and that way you have to stay on top of it. It's so critical. There was even one time with my sister early on. Now, this was 2001, and Children's Hospital Los Angeles was making that transition from paper records to digital, and they were in the process. We come in for my sister's second round of chemotherapy, and they have lost her records. She was in the hospital for 2 weeks, just 3 weeks before, and they lost her records. And they came to me and asked me how much pain medication she had been given during her first round of chemotherapy. And I had it written down,
Wow.
thank God. So that is a sort of an egregious example. But the other example I gave, where just my doctor didn't have access to a report, is much more minor. But again, another example of where you as the patient and the family member really have to take charge. It's not great, but it's what you have to
Yeah.
do. It's what you have to do. Regardless of the medical system, I'm going to say,
Mm-hmm.
whether you live in a country where it's single payer and you have guaranteed health insurance, or you live here in the US where, who knows, you may or may not have health insurance, you may have Medicare, who the heck knows, doesn't matter. You have to be in charge.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and for people that like are looking for it, that are in that situation, just got the news or whatever, you already offer like a bunch of tools and resources that people can use.
Yeah, so sorry, my bangs are driving me
You're
crazy. I meant to trim them, and there's people listening like I'm fiddling with my bangs because they're my, I meant to trim them. Yeah, so at Cancer University, we do have an online platform. We have courses, coaching, we have a community, and if you go to cancer.university, it's free, and you'll see the little green button. And so you can feel free to sign up. And we have over 100 pieces of content. And we also have a lot of personal stories from people who've been there and they're on the other side of it. And I think that helps people too, just to hear survivor stories about, about someone who's experienced their very particular type of cancer. For liver cancer specifically, if you go to bluefaery.org, FAERY.org, we have patient resource guides in multiple languages, easy to understand, free to download, free to ship actually worldwide. So if you're a doctor, you can order them as well. We also have a private community and many other resources and tools to help you navigate the space. It's a slog. One patient told me that one time, that she wished she had known what a slog it was going to be. And it is, it really is with a chronic disease.
Yeah. I have never been in that position, but like I can understand that. And I will have all the links and everything in the show notes for people to go and check it out, if they need it.
Yes.
Yeah, so anything else that you would like for to share with my listeners?
Oh gosh. Yeah, so this is not very comfortable for some people, but the other thing that I really encourage is to have the death conversation. We are all dying. I've got news. Even for the former CEO of Twitter who thinks he's never going to die, he's dying.
Yeah.
And so, some of us know when, some of us don't, but if you have the death conversation before you get sick, like that's the best time to do it, because if you wait till you get sick, it's often much more difficult. I wish my sister and I had had that discussion. I really do. And we didn't. And she knew she was dying. Like I mentioned, she kept a journal. I never read her journal because it was private and she didn't want me to. So I didn't read her journal at least until a year or two after she died. And there was a moment during her illness where I thought she was getting better, where she had a, in and out, great round of chemotherapy, no side effects, no pain meds. She looked better. She had more energy. I thought she was getting better. And she knew in her body, she could feel it. She was getting worse. And less than 2 weeks later, we got that news that the tumors had just multiplied out of control. And so have that conversation, have the death conversation. Get real, what do you want? In an ideal situation, what do you want? What do you want your healthcare choices to be? Who is going to be your power of attorney? And I'm not talking about possessions, I'm not talking about a will. I'm talking about what's called an advance directive or a living will, where you write and then get it legally notarized exactly what you would want if you are not able to speak for yourself. And you want someone, that power of attorney, you want someone to be able to carry out your wishes. And here's the trick. Often the best person to be your power of attorney is not your spouse or your adult child. Often it's not, because that person may have a really difficult time if they don't agree with your choices, or even if they do, they might have a really difficult time, for example, turning off the respirator, turning off life support. My stepmother had to do that for her sister, and it just, to this day, it has devastated her, and she feels like she killed her sister. Her sister did not have an advance directive. Her sister did not have her healthcare preferences written down. And so I highly recommend to people to have that conversation early on. I mean, really have the conversation and continue the conversation, because guess what? What you want may change. What you want at 23 is very different from what you might want at 73, especially in terms of life-saving measures.
Wow, yeah. And yeah, not a lot of people think about it. It's a really hard conversation. So as for
It is.
me, my family is very special, and it wasn't into my 30s that I learned about grieving, because my family, I express that when somebody passes away, it's like a block on Facebook, like they're gone,
Yeah.
gone. And that's their process, coping mechanism. So it's not till like we get older and other generations come in, and it's like, no, let's talk about it. And with a friend, it was like the healthiest way to see grieving, and it blew my mind. And yes, it's something that it needs to be talked, healthy and unhealthy,
Yeah.
because to have somebody outside of your close family that is going through the motions, making those decisions, so the responsibility, I understand what you're saying, because one of my friends, it was an unexpected death, and a
Mm.
friend of the family was the one making the phone calls to everybody.
Yeah.
So to have somebody to make those decisions as well is important. So thank you for bringing awareness.
You're welcome. I met this woman one time, so incredible. She was in her mid to late 70s. And she had sort of a progressive disease that she knew that would probably kill her, right? And she had really thought it out. And none of her adult children were her powers of attorney. None of them. And they were all old enough. They were all in their like 40s and early 50s. And when I asked her why, she said, because they will not do what I want done. She ended up choosing her 21-year-old grandson out of a lot of grandchildren and some older grandchildren. Her 21-year-old grandson was totally aligned with what she wanted, understand what he would have to do. And the other thing about being a power of attorney is you will have to go up against the medical establishment, or you may, and you almost will always have to go up against other family members. So you need someone who will not only respect your choices, but someone who has a backbone. You have to have a backbone. And so I thought it was just genius that she decided her 21-year-old grandson, and it's in writing, it's not like
Mhm.
I made this decision. I'm not telling anyone, it's in writing. And so that's really critical too. I am, after my stepmother, I'm the alternate for my father, as far as power of attorney for his healthcare wishes. And as a daughter, it gives me a lot of relief to know exactly what my dad wants. So if that time comes and we're in a situation in a hospital or anything, I know exactly what my dad wants. And that makes it a lot easier for me. So think of it as a gift. Think of having that conversation as a gift that you are giving to your family. And if they don't want to hear it, then they are not the right people to be your power of attorney. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. This interview will be released in December. So, what is one accomplishment this year that you're most proud of?
Oh, goodness. Can I have two?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Yay. Okay.
I-
My most recent one is I finally recorded the audiobook for Better
Ooh.
Off Bald just last month. And I waited so long to do it because I was looking for a co-narrator, and it wasn't my idea. It's a genius idea, but someone came up with the idea of, wouldn't it be great for the audiobook if someone read your sister's parts, because she's such a heavy influence on the book, and like I said, you really see her point of view about everything. So I waited until I found the right co-narrator, and it took a long time, and then for our schedules to gel and everything. So one, I'm most proud of finally doing the audiobook and not settling and waiting for the right person to do the co-narration with. It was such an intense and difficult week. I was recording every day, Monday through Friday, for 5 to 6 hours a day. It was very emotional, but I'm so excited to hear the final product and share it with the world. The other thing I'm proud of is more personal. I have been working really hard since the spring on my trauma, and I've been exploring alternative therapies on how to deal with my trauma. So I have done the sort of typical therapist route. I have been on an antidepressant, and I started exploring other ways to deal with trauma, and to also understand how much trauma lives in our body. And so, and that has been hard for me, to take the time to work on myself and to give myself this gift of working through my trauma and realizing how much of it has contributed to some of my own healthcare issues.
Wow, yes. And I always talk about the book, The Body Keeps Scores.
Yes, the body keeps the score. Oh my gosh, amazing book. Amazing book.
Yes, I always mention it when I hear about trauma and somebody recognizing that the trauma stays in your body.
It does.
So I'm just learning about it. I have trauma in other aspect of life, but yeah, that I I did not think about ask. Of course, that's the important part.
It's a great book, right?
How did you come to the other side, or uh, what was the
I'm not
process
quite
to
there
do
yet.
it? Yeah, yeah. What's the journey? What's the journey? Because it's a never-ending journey.
I won't, I don't want to go into too many details, but
Okay.
just say I'm
Yes.
exploring because one of the modalities I'm exploring is a plant-based modality that's not necessarily legal in every
Okay.
state in the US, but but I would say I'm not doing this by myself. I have a guide. I have, healthcare professionals. And so I think that's the other thing, is don't do it alone, and find the right people to really guide you through it. And I'm starting to see kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, and it feels really good. It feels really good. The anniversary of my sister's death is, at the time of this recording, is this upcoming Sunday, and it will be 21 years. And I still, as you can see, choke up, and I still miss her so much, but I finally feel like I'm moving forward, and I'm just doing the best that I can to help others who were in her situation or mine.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. I
Oh, thank you.
really, it was a great conversation, and you really honor your sister in a beautiful, beautiful way.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Until next time, hope you have a blessed day.